You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review on AMI Audio. I'm Jacob Szymanski. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when artificial intelligence will infiltrate every aspect of our lives. Honestly, we're already most of the way there. But you're listening to AMI Audiobook Review and you're smart, you're savvy. You could see that this is me leading you to today's topic, AI Narration for Audiobooks. You also probably saw the title of this episode, which probably spoiled the surprise, but I prefer to think that our listeners are exceedingly intelligent. In all seriousness, though, AI is such a moving target that we've decided it's worthwhile having a 2024 fall update on AI narration because things have developed. And who better to help me out with this than regular contributor to the show, Sara Hillis? She's well plugged into the audiobook world and therefore well aware of all the new AI happenings happening within it. How's it going, Sarah? Thanks for coming
Oh,
back.
pretty good. Yeah. Thanks for having me on as usual.
I want to start with a vibe check, not just for AI narration, but just like AI as a whole. Are you feeling the doom? Are you scared? Are you optimistic? How are you feeling?
I basically feel that AI is here. It's not going anywhere. So, okay. I'm kind of in the middle. I have some doominess in some aspects of it. For example, National Novel Writing Month, the organization came out with they don't mind if you use AI to help you write your novels because they used an inclusive idea. Like if you can't type well or something, or you have a mobility issue, then maybe AI can help you. A lot of the people who it was aimed at being inclusive of basically said, well, we're leaving your platform now. We're not going to do this thing in November anymore because we don't believe you're being genuine here. So that was interesting. But other than that,
Wow.
uh, other than
Well,
that,
sorry, wait, back up. I need to hear this again. Wait. So it was some sort of event that said that you were allowed to use AI to write.
yeah, National
Hmm.
Novel Writing Month is really kind of informal. You spend November writing a 50,000 word novel, and they basically came out and said we won't forbid AI from being used. I don't even know how they could check it anyway, really, given how they do things.
Yeah.
But and they used an inclusivity kind of idea where it can help people who have mobility issues, whatever. And a lot of people that have those mobility issues that they thought they were helping were saying, that's, I want to write my own novel. I don't want to use AI. What are you talking about? You're clueless on this issue. And so they got mad at them. So it was very
That's pretty
interesting.
spicy. Where
Yeah.
do you stand on this?
Well, I quit them just a couple weeks ago. The AI thing was kind of a straw that broke the camel's back. There were other reasons I wanted to stop doing it, and I finally deleted my account. But
Wow.
yeah, but it's neither here nor there. But the point is, so I have issues with AI, generative AI. I mean, so things that write stuff for you. I'm like, it's just against my whole nature to really be into it. But I can see why people might use it to use their workflow. Like Zoom has a summary thing that can kind of help you write your minutes of your meetings. Maybe you have to tweak it, but it's there, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I'm in the middle, I guess.
Because you can apply it in different ways. Like Zoom can do summaries, but then it could also search the web for you and just give you answers, right?
Yeah,
Like AI is a huge umbrella term for a lot of different functions. Like ChatGPT
yeah.
and Perplexity AI, for example, are very different, even though they look similar. But it sounds like you're in the camp where using ChatGPT for eliminating the grind of writing, eliminating the creative writing part of it is like kind of complicated.
Yeah, if you're an actual writer, I mean.
Hmm.
Not just eliminating that, but you feel like there's a lack of creativity, lack of imagination there. That's what I would be nervous about when it comes to that.
Yeah, you'd have to actually spend a lot of time untangling it and making it what you want it to be, I think.
And
So,
that's the worst kind of writing is editing, right? So you put in a prompt for ChatGPT, write me a story about a bunny that goes missing and his bunny family goes out searching for him. Like
yeah.
sure, you had the initial idea for it, but then like the writing might not be what you wanted, and then you're just spending your time editing what ChatGPT gave you. And if you're using that for like a school assignment on creative writing or something, I mean, I don't blame you because that kind of assignment sucks. But like, if you're doing that for an entire novel, that sounds miserable, and I have my doubts about the results because like the quality of your writing, like your the characteristics of your writing are going to get lost in that, right? So Niz, I kind of agree with you. I think it would eventually like tone down creativity in the long run, at least.
I do believe that. I
Yeah.
believe that there's some people that will put it through chat GPT and
Hmm.
they're like, I don't even want to edit it because it sounds so good. Like I don't see any problems with it. Chat the AI is like fixing it all up for me. There's nothing to fix here. So I do feel like there's going to be a lack of imagination, a lack of creativity. um it's it I don't know, I feel like people use this easy way out. Is that fair to say, easy way out of
I mean,
this
you
when
can
it comes to
compare.
novel writing, at
Yeah,
least? Yeah.
I'd love to know if there are big name authors that use ChatGPT. You know, when they're having a tough
Yeah.
day and they have writer's block and they just like they put in a prompt like, here's what's happening in the story. Help me come up with like 10 ideas for how the plot could continue at this point in the story. Like,
Yeah, I don't hate that because you're not using it as you're writing, you're using it as a
Exactly.
tool.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't feel like that will
hmm.
really, I feel like that's okay. That's okay. But when you're using it to write the whole novel and you're like, I'm not going to fix anything, I'm not going to touch anything cuz it just sounds so good. Um that's when I feel like people need to draw the line.
Well, when ChatGPT gives you an output, like the grammar is good, right? Like it does sound nice. It formulates like paragraphs well, and its sentences are usually well structured. But it's you could say it's robotic, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not very
Yeah.
literary. Like you can ask it to write prose, but when you ask it to write prose, it's so cheesy. It's so cheesy. It's like the worst writing ever, even though everything is like technically like grammatically correct. But Niz, I want to ask you the same question that I asked Sarah. What's your vibe check for just AI in general?
I do have this doominess in me. I feel like I'm
Hmm.
nervous about the whole thing. Like I said, I feel like people will be taking the easy way out and just, I don't know. I feel like it's, we've come to adapt it, it's here.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere, as Sarah said. Um, so we're adapting to it. We're accepting it. We're working with it because, yeah, we use AI. Um, but there always should be a line that we shouldn't cross.
I know
Because
that
if we do, that's when I feel the doominess, the nervousness.
it depends how you use it. And I know that in the past, people have made the argument that we've had lots of new technologies be introduced to society, and it was never the cataclysmic event that it was made out to be. Like when the printing press first came along, like people thought it would like dumb us down, but what it did in the end was spread information further and wider than it had ever been before. Things like the steam engine, like people thought it was going to be catastrophic. Things like the calculator, the friggin' fax machine, like people were real doomers about those things, but it didn't end up being the huge deal breaker. But with AI, it's not replacing manual labor. It's replacing human brain power. And that's where it's different, right? Anyways, the value proposition for this episode is to give you an update on where AI is in fall 2024 as it pertains to AI narration. Sarah, do we have an idea of the general perception of AI narration as we stand right now? Like, is the market accepting it?
Right now it's kind of too soon to tell how the consumer is accepting it overall. The publishers are using it in some very different ways. So Amazon, for example, has something called virtual voices, and its focus is to take a lot of self-published and independent Kindle books and get them audioized. So to get them to become audiobooks in a way that no small publisher or independent person can do easily by hiring a narrator, because they have to, there's so much cost involved in doing that. So that's one of their focuses majorly. And they had said they weren't going to do that, but then they decided to. Because basically Apple had started the whole thing with its digital narration in 2022, which I think is going similarly. It's going for smaller print, smaller run books. As far as I can tell, I've only seen a couple of them up there on the Apple Books site. And they say, narrated by Madison, an Apple digital narrator. So it completely says this is what it is. Like, it's not a real person. They just named it Madison. And Spotify, I think, is going that way too with its Find a Way voices. It's been a narrator hub for some time, getting publishers matched with narrators. And so it started some AI stuff as well. Again, the author has to put it in there. Just like at Amazon, you have to do it yourself. Pick a voice from their little range of voices and then run your book through it, and then, tweak all the little pacing and all the, errors that might creep in. You have to do that too, which sounds really fun and not fun at all, actually. So yeah, we don't know how the consumers are going to really it's just not been up there long enough to really have penetrated the market in a big way. It seems to be staying on the fringes of things for most of these publishers. Audible has started to do something interesting with a select group of narrators, and this could be a way forward, because narrators have historically been a little less happy about the AI creep into audiobooks.
Understandably, it's their livelihood, right?
Yeah. So all these voices I said before were digitally created voices. Just, I don't. There might be people behind them, but the point is they're text to speech kind of glorified text to speech kind of voices. With Audible, they would like to create, with a few narrators, they've done this agreement just recently in the last few months, of creating vocal, what I call them vocal clones. I don't know what Audible calls them, but so for Audible published books, the narrator would upload a sample of their voice or whatever they have to do. They would create a vocal clone, but then that would be the narrator's property to use as they wish. So the narrator would have to get their vocal self, to their clone self, to quote audition unquote for a book, and excuse me,
Bless you.
I have something in my throat. And yeah, so the narrator would have to actually they would be in charge of that. So the clone would do a book for as if it was the narrator, sort of, and the narrator gets the royalties. So Audible doesn't take control of that clone or whatever, the vocal image, whatever you want to call it, of the narrator. That's the narrator's property, which is a kind of a cool way to do it, because that's what narrators wanted, I think. If they were going to be used as AI fodder, they wanted to have the rights over that AI, and they can even tweak the book, or tell Audible to tweak the book, like, I wouldn't pronounce something that way, fix that, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
You actually have those tools. Wow, that's really cool. So in this case, an author that has their voice, a narrator that has their voice cloned would still own their voice, even though it was cloned. It was as if they did the work themselves almost. So it's kind of like a middle ground.
Yeah.
And I can see the appeal, because people have like loyalty to certain narrators, where if they see a book, it's like, oh, narrated by Scott Brick, oh, I'm gonna read this, I don't care. Like, people have their preferences, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I hope is they do say that this is the digital version of Scott Brick or something.
Yes.
Like, I hope they at least tell you that much, because then you'll be like,
Mhm.
wait, Scott Brick doesn't sound quite like that, does he? Like,
And nowadays, I find AI cloning is very good at recreating the tonality of a voice. It's actually remarkably good. I've done it with my own voice. I promise I'm not an AI right now. But what it doesn't do well is pick up on like the speech patterns and the rhythm of the way people speak. And because we all have our little idiosyncrasies in our speech patterns, right? It's still not very good at that. And if it can't do speech patterns and idiosyncrasies for individual speakers, it's not going to do emotion and subtleties like sarcasm and humor and anger. Like it kind of does those last couple things, but in my experience and in what I've heard, it still sounds a little goofy. Like I remember when I was playing around with it, I took a piece of text and I put it through 11 Labs, which is one of these popular services for creating AI voices. And the piece of text had somebody in a fictional story that was like on horseback, and they saw another group of people on horseback coming through, and it was like a shocking revelation, like they were under attack. And the man was supposed to say, "We're under attack," with like three exclamation marks, but for some reason it came out like a squeal, like it interpreted as like being like a small child. It was very awkward. But my point is like it doesn't have that discernment, right? And that's something a human narrator is, I'm not going to say always, but at this point in time, still has the advantage. Now, the question is, are we willing to take a downgrade so that more books are available as audiobooks?
Yeah, and I mean, only time will tell about this because we're so at the beginning of this. We're still very at the beginning of how all this works. Only time will tell, I think. I mean, hey, if you can say this is a $5 audiobook, maybe people will just say fine.
I
You
wish
know?
audiobooks were $5. I mean, honestly, the price is going to be a big factor in all of this. If we get to a point where AI narrated audiobooks are the same price as a human narrated audiobook, screw off. That will actually really annoy me. I want to touch on another development in AI narration, and that's the implications when it comes to translations. And Penguin and Simon and Schuster have some developments in this. What are your updates?
Yeah, I think other publishers too. It was at
Mhm.
the was International Publishers Fair. I think that's what it was called in March. I saw an article, and certainly Penguin and Simon and Schuster both did presentations at this publishers fair about how AI narration can be used in, again, making audiobooks of translated books. So say you have the Harry Potter series and you translate it into uh, Cantonese or something. Okay, so you either have to find a Cantonese narrator who's willing to narrate the whole series, or maybe several if you want to go that way. And that could take time, and it could take money, and it could take which studio is going to record this, where does this narrator live, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Or you find a nice AI voice that can do Cantonese relatively well, hopefully properly. I mean, who knows? And then just shove the books in there, and then it comes out as a Cantonese audiobook or several, you know. So they're sort of looking at it that way. They're looking at it that they can increase access to audiobooks to, in different languages, because I think still predominantly, I think English is the why. I think I'm right about this. I could be wrong. English is the most often used language for audiobooks, I would say.
If you're curious whether AI narration and AI cloned voices sound good in languages other than English, I can tell you that yes, they sound good, because when they produce these voices in different languages, they just use the same process that they used to teach the AI English and English pronunciation, just in a different language. I've heard French, which is my native language, and it sounds perfect. Honestly, it's just as good as the English one. And since it's using the same process for other languages, it sounds pretty good. And something that's really cool that you can do with AI cloning is that you can make Scott Brick speak Cantonese. You know,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
could
you can. Yeah, absolutely. Now, did they do Québécois French?
No. Okay, see, accents is a really interesting part of all of this. This is something that you kind of it on 11 Labs. The last time that I saw it, it said that it specifically works better with North American accents.
Yeah.
In even like British accents, it doesn't do so well. It just sounds like slightly Americanized British accents. So
Mm-hmm.
it seems like they treat accents in the same way that they would treat like a language, which is very interesting. Which would kind of lead to a point where every AI narrated audiobook would just sound American, right?
Hmm.
Which kind of sucks.
And I don't know what Audible, for example, is using, or Penguin and Simon and Schuster, what technologies they're using, because 11 Labs is just one of them, right?
There's lots of them, yeah. Though I still think 11 Labs is probably one of the most popular ones. They have lots of
Yeah.
different types of services for what they can do. Another development that's come out recently is a Polish company, and they have options when it comes to like swapping out the voice of your audiobook. How does this work?
Yeah, this is cool. I read this recently. Storytel, which I think it did a drama of something. I can't remember what it was that won an Audie last year.
Mm.
I can't remember what it was now, sadly, but that's neither here nor there. Storytel has come out with this thing. I assume it's in its own app or something that you can. It's a publisher from Poland, audio publisher from Poland, and it's if you don't like the human narrated voice that they picked for their book, there are like 3 or 4 different AI options you can just switch it out for. Um,
Hmm.
in like you've already bought the book, so you kind of bought. I think the idea is you bought access to these AI voices too. It's kind of how that works.
It would be
So the
kind of
human narrator would get the royalties regardless whether you use the AI or not, but it's there as an option.
okay. Okay, that makes it a little bit more palatable for me. Because imagine a world where you could just swap out the actual human narration with a clone voice, and then poof, like the narrator loses their royalties. That would really
No,
suck.
it's totally it's
Huh.
just like so the consumer buys the book, they start listening to the narrator, they're like, I don't know. And but they might like an AI voice. They only have a few of them, but they might like an AI voice a little better for it, so they pick it. So it's still you don't have like 7 human narrators. You have 1 human narrator plus 3 or 4 AI options.
Okay, see, I wanted to ask you guys this. So, since we're talking about audio AI narration, isn't it weird that in a lot of these cases, not in this Polish company's case, um, that they're only offering us basically just like an audiobook, like in the traditional format with one AI voice? Shouldn't we be able to choose the voice? Like, I feel like that would be such a good feature because people are very picky with their human voices to start with. If you want people to cozy up to the idea of AI narration, let them choose. Niz, what do you think?
Yeah, it's the least we can do, right? I think that's reasonable. That's that's how it should be.
I just feel like if they have the option to choose between like 50 different voices, I think we should too. But then again, I
That
guess you'd
would be
have.
really sick though.
Yeah, it would. That would make me way more open to it. That said, that means that they would need to like generate the book in like 50 different voices, which I mean it's not impossible. Like we are paying for it, right? At least
We're paying
we're
for it.
paying.
And no, I honestly think
Hmm.
think that would be a really cool feature though. Even if you were to generate 50 different voices, like you can go through the first page, first couple of sentences and see the vibe. And that I think that will make you enjoy the book even more. I'd be open to that.
In
Yeah.
preparation for this, Sarah, you asked if we wanted to do predictions, even though AI is such a moving target. Do you want to give it a shot? Do you want to start?
I do think that I don't know how many years from now, but I do think that there will be this idea that you can pick whatever voice you want um, to hear a book. I don't know how that's going to work because there are still very strong narrators unions Well, I think some
Mm,
narrators are with the actors unions and stuff too, which are pretty strong, right?
yeah,
Um, so I don't think they'll kick the human narrators out, and I personally don't want them to, because that is partly why I like to read an audiobook, is because I want to hear somebody narrate it for me, like
a
a
performance.
person who's like doing it. Yeah. Um, and It's interesting because back in the day, I didn't quite feel that way. I just like, I want a book that I can read. It's not available in Braille, so okay, I'd use my library, my Access Libraries books, whatever they were. Now it's more like, well, but this person took the time to get into the book and understand it, and that's really cool, and I like that. Um, so yeah, I think what will happen, I think, is that AI will become a more on demand feature and a more customizing kind of feature. I think
Yeah,
Mm.
I think that's. I think what they'll probably do is start giving you an English version that might be human narrated, and then you'll get some other languages you could just switch into if you
very
want.
cool. We're good for learning languages.
Yeah, that's what I think. Who knows?
Who knows? But yeah, I think that customizability is going to be really a big part of it in the future. I do think that there will be like a split in the industry where human narration is going to be seen as a premium option, and that basically every independent and like small publisher book is going to have AI narration, and that
I
like
think
the
that will be an
mark
expensive feature too.
like yeah, do you think so? See, this
I
is what I
truly
don't know,
believe
and I
that.
will not make a prediction. I don't know if they're going to be pricing these differently. If I had to put my money on it, I'd say yeah, it would make sense to charge slightly
Yeah.
more. Now the thing is, are they going to make the prices of AI narrated books cheaper, or are they going to make the
No.
prices of human narrated books more expensive? And we live in a
Mm.
capitalistic society. I have an idea which it's going to be.
I think, you
Yeah.
know what, because of the variety that we'd have that option sometime in the future, our prediction, our theory here is having different voices and having that option. I think it's going to be more expensive to have an AI narration. Sadly, that's what I predict. I
I hope
don't
you're
agree
wrong.
with it. I don't like it. I hope I'm wrong, but living in the society, I think this is just how it's going to be. But I really hope I'm wrong.
As we wrap up here, I want to add one thing about AI that makes it really helpful for us people who read books all the time and listen to audiobooks is using AI for book recommendations. I want you to try this. Go on ChatGPT or Perplexity AI or whatever AI tool you use and ask it something really specific, like find me a fiction book set in a fantasy universe where sports are a main theme, and the main character is a young, strong female character. I guarantee you, it's going to give you super specific results because it has access to all of Goodreads, all of Audible, all of Barnes and Noble, and it can go through every single summary and pick all the ones that are like exactly what you want. It's amazing. I'm telling you, I've found some books like this recently. It's been a game changer.
I have to try that.
Hmm.
Sarah, any final remarks before we wrap up?
Just that, as I said before, AI is not going anywhere. I'm more on the side of let's give human people a fair shake for all the work that they do. So if Audible's agreement is something that other publishers adopt, I think it's kind of the best you can get for that. And other than just forbidding AI, completely, which I don't think anybody will do. I think that's unrealistic. But yeah, AI is just it's here, and we're gonna have to see where it goes.
We'll touch base on this topic again soon, maybe next summer. I'm sure there's going to be some developments. And eventually, we are going to review a book on here that's going to be narrated by AI. And maybe we won't even know it was narrated by AI. Thank you both so much. Niz, Sarah, this was awesome. That was Nisreen Abdelmajid. She's a technical producer for AMI Audio. She's a producer on AMI Audiobook Review and AMI Today, and regular contributor Sara Hillis. That's all the time we have for AMI Audiobook Review. I'm your host, Jacob Szymanski. Thanks for listening.